Hey everyone, welcome back to another Excel Better video. In this tutorial, we're going to cover conditional formatting in Excel, and I specifically wanted to cover conditional formatting from a couple different perspectives. And one is the idea that what if you actually want to format a cell that is next to the cell that is containing a certain value. So it's a little bit more intuitive if you want to format this sales variance column here, but a little less intuitive if you actually want the column next to it to be the color that's calling out whether it's good or bad. So in this case, we just have some made up data. We said we have a handful of states and we got the sales variance column next to it. And then in the column next to that, we have, red if it's bad, green if it's good, right? So what would be great is if we could actually update column D to where this color coding is going to update automatically based on the reporting that we have in our sales variance. And you could also think about this maybe from like a dashboard perspective, that if you have a dashboard that you're building, maybe you have, a reason for wanting to color code this and not actually bringing over the value. Maybe you just want to say, hey, Michigan's down, Florida's down, the rest of the states here are up in terms of their sales status. So you could call that out in that way. But again, it's not as intuitive to be able to say how you would be able to update that with conditional formatting, which is the purpose of this video. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to try to replicate that, or I'm going to show you guys how to replicate that. Okay, so in order to do this, I'm going to start here. I'm going to actually in D4, so in column D, we want this to just mimic the value to start out that's in column C. So in D4, I'm going to say that's equal to C4, and then I'm going to go ahead and just copy that formula down across that whole range of cells there. So now we just have exactly what that is to the right. Okay, but even still, now what we need to do is have our conditional formatting change the font and the fill. So ideally now we want this conditional formatting to change the font of this to be red and the actual fill to be red and to be the exact same red that we're using. So that way the font and the sales number that's in there gets camouflaged and kind of just absorbed into the fill. All right, so to do that, under the Home tab, we're going to come over here to Conditional Formatting. We're going to click into that, and at the very top, we're going to click into Highlight Cells Rules. And let's just start out by saying what's greater than, which, by the way, just to be clear, in this example, we're going to assume that anything that is 0 or greater than 0 is a positive. So we're going to say that's good. So if you're the sales are the same or they're flat, it's going to be green. It's going to be the same color green if it's greater than 0. So we're going to go ahead and click in greater than, and you could do this in any order. We're just going to start here because it was at the top. And in this case, it's going to say format cells that are greater than, and it's going to default to whatever cell that you were clicked in prior to clicking into your conditional formatting. So in this case, it's going to say, do you want to format cells that are greater than negative $100? And I don't, because for me, my target's really around 0. But again, keep in mind for your own reporting, you can have your own threshold wherever they are. You could say, I want to, color code any sales territory that's over $1 million to be green, anything less than $1 million to be red, right? Or whatever colors you guys happen to choose. So just letting you know, I'm using 0 as my frame of reference, but you can use any frame of reference that you would want. But it is good to keep it in mind that it is actually going to start out with the value of the cell that you were clicked into. So I'm going to go ahead and change that to 0. And if it's greater than 0, I have some options over here. So the very first one that it's going to default to is going to be light red with a dark red text. And then I see some other options here. I've got yellow with dark yellow text and green fill with green text. But that's not really going to be exactly what we're looking for. And to kind of prove that, I can go ahead and hit OK on this. So right now it's saying anything greater than 0 is going to be green fill with dark green text. So let's see what that would look like. If my sales variance was actually a positive 100, that's what the format's going to look like. But remember, we wanted it to actually be like that dark green, and we didn't want the font to be visible. So that's not going to give us what we want. So we're going to go back to our conditional formatting, highlight cells rules, and we're going to go back to greater than. And now we're going to say, okay, if it's greater than 0, we don't want it to do that, but we do want to say custom format, and we can go to color, and we can say If it's greater than 0, we want it to be this color green on our fonts. So we change that here. Go over to our fill and select that exact same color green. And keep in mind, I'm saying that exact same color green because that's the green that I've selected to use. You could absolutely use any other color. Just if you want them to be the same, just make sure that your font and your fill are set to the same color. So I'm going to just choose that one, and then I'm going to say OK. And now we see that this over here is exactly what we wanted it to be. Exactly the same color, all of those things. Now there are two more scenarios that we need to cover though. Go back to our conditional formatting. We also need to cover the example of when it's less than 0. So again, it's going to default to 100 because the cell we were clicked into now says 100. I'm going to change that to 0. But now if it's less than 0, I'm going to go down to the bottom and click custom format. And I'm going to, because it's less than 0, click on this color red for the fill, go to my font, find my color here for fonts. It's set to automatic. I'm going to change that to red, and I'm going to hit OK. And I'm going to hit OK again. And you can test that out before you go any further. You can say, okay, well, what if I change this to -1? And we can see that it does change it to that red that we wanted it to be, and uniformly red. So -100, same thing, still red. Great. So making sure that we're clicking back into this cell that we want formatted, back to our conditional formatting, highlight cells rules. And now we're going to say for the third condition, we want to specify what's going to happen when it's equal to 0. Because right now, if it's just 0, it's actually going to, it's not going to do anything. And we want to be able to say, hey, even though it's 0, we're still going to count that as a positive just because we're choosing to. You don't have to. You could leave that blank. You could decide to color it yellow and do whatever you'd want to do with that. So I'm going to come over here, go back to custom format. I'm going to go, now it's bringing me to my font tab. I'm going to say color because again, 0 in our example is just considered to be just as good as up. And I'm going to click that color green. And then I'm going to say for fill, the exact same color green. Hit OK. Hit OK one more time. And again, we can test it. We can say, what if it's 0? Okay, it's green like we'd expect. What if it's 1? Still green. -1, it's red. So now we can go ahead and just copy this down. And we can copy this a couple different ways. You can do this and just, Control V. That's going to work. You could have, just been able to drag the actual cell down. Whatever way you want to copy that down, go ahead and do that. And now this is going to be set up where it's dynamically capturing, based on your sales variance, the column next to it is going to update your color coding to call that out. So again, let's say that all of these are up 500. They're all going to be green. If they're all going to be down 500, they're all going to be red. And if Hawaii is the only one that's up, it'll be green automatically. Now we can also think about this from like a dashboard perspective. So like, let's say over here, you wanted a dashboard that was going to update automatically. Well, if we wanted that to happen, we could do that same thing where we're actually grabbing the number from the sales variance from our data tab here. We're going to copy that in. And because we already had this format in that way, I'm going to copy it. And I'm going to come over here and we're going to say that we want to paste formatting. And then we can drag that down. And now over from our data tab, we would be able to change these guys and have the color coding on our dashboard update in sync with what's going on over here. So there you guys have it. There's a way where you can, do a couple different things. You can stack multiple conditions within your conditional formatting. So in our case, we had greater than 0, less than 0, and equal to 0. Those were the three conditions. And we also covered how we would be able to put formatting next to the cell that has the value. Or if you wanted to have like a dashboard type of a view, how you could have that here without having the actual number showing. Now, again, I'm not saying that these are the colors you'd want to be using. I'm not even saying that you would have a reason to not be showing the number. But if that ever comes up, that's how you would accomplish it with conditional formatting. So thank you guys so much for sticking around for the whole video. And if you like this one and you want to see future tips and tricks on Excel, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. And if you have any questions or comments, I'd love to hear from you. So thanks again.